Mom, we already ate on the way. My son said it while shrugging off his jacket, right there in my doorway, with the smell of roast chicken still thick in the air. I stood there holding a dish towel, my oven mitts still on the counter behind me, the casserole bubbling softly in the oven. The table was already set. Their favorite mashed potatoes sat in a big ceramic bowl, steam rising in little ghosts. The lemon pie Noah once called Grandma's Sunshine had just finished cooling. And my son told me they had already eaten. It was a Tuesday night, nothing special on the calendar. But for me, it had been something to hold on to all week. Michael had said, "We'll come by after Noah's practice. We've been so busy. It would be nice to have a home-cooked meal." Those words lodged themselves in my chest like a promise. So I had planned the menu like I used to when he was small. Roast chicken, potatoes with extra butter, green beans with almonds, cranberry relish because he always liked something tart. I took my time in the grocery store, reading labels, putting things back, counting my money twice. My knees ached going up and down the aisles, but I told myself it was worth it. Now they were stepping into the living room, chattering about traffic and school and some email from Laura's work. Noah dropped his backpack by the sofa, already reaching for the TV remote. Laura smiled, quick and thin. "It smells great, Mom," she said. "Really? I feel so bad. We didn't think you'd, go all out." They didn't take off their shoes. They didn't come to the table. They didn't look at the plates I had set, the cloth napkins I had ironed that afternoon. I swallowed and tried to keep my voice light. "Oh, well. I thought you'd be hungry after practice." "We grabbed burgers," Michael said. "Noah was starving. Weren't you, buddy?" Noah nodded without looking at me, eyes already on the glowing TV screen. Ketchup was still on his sleeve. In the kitchen, the timer on the oven beeped. Once. Twice. No one moved. I wiped my hands on the towel and turned away. "I'll, turn it down so it doesn't burn," I said. No one answered. Behind me, the sound of the TV swelled, bright and cheerful, selling something about happy families and dinner tables. I opened the oven and a wave of heat flushed my face. The chicken skin was golden, crackling. I slid the pan out and set it on the stove. For a moment I just stood there, looking at it, listening to my own heart beat in my ears. The house felt crowded with smells and empty of people at the same time. They stayed about 20 minutes. Michael walked into the kitchen once to grab a glass of water. He glanced at the food and said, "You should freeze some of that, Mom. Don't let it go to waste. Don't let it go to waste." I nodded, because I didn't trust my voice. When they left, I helped Noah find his backpack and reminded him about his math quiz. Laura hugged me quickly, half-turned toward the door. "We'll plan something soon," she said. "Maybe a Saturday brunch. Things are just crazy right now." Yes. Things were always crazy. The door closed behind them. Their footsteps faded down the hallway. The apartment was very quiet, except for the ticking of the clock in the kitchen and the hum of the fridge. In the living room, the couch cushion still had the faint warmth of where Noah had been sitting. On the coffee table, a ring of condensation marked where Michael's glass had been. At the dining table, 3 plates waited, perfectly empty. I stood at the doorway between the kitchen and the living room, holding the dish towel like a flag I had forgotten to put down. The TV, now muted, showed a scene of a laughing family passing bowls of food around a crowded table. In my own kitchen, the only sound was the soft crackle of cooling chicken. That night, I didn't cry. I stacked the plates back in the cabinet and packed everything into plastic containers. I wrote chicken on masking tape and stuck it on the lid. I moved slowly, carefully, as if someone might be watching and I wanted to appear calm. But I remember thinking one clear thought, like a stone dropped into still water. If I disappeared tomorrow, would anyone even notice the empty chair? At the time, I didn't know that this forgotten dinner would be the start of the biggest change in my life. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, stay with me, you need to hear what happened next. The next few weeks looked normal from the outside. I took the leftover chicken and made soup. I ate it alone over 3 nights, adding water and noodles to stretch it out. I sliced the lemon pie and wrapped each slice in foil, putting them in the freezer for later. Later never really came. Michael still called, in his way. Short, practical calls. Hey, Mom, could you pick Noah up from school on Thursday? Mom, Laura's running late. Could he stay at your place for a couple of hours? Mom, are you free to watch him Saturday? We have a thing. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I loved that boy. I loved my son. I loved all of them, more than was probably healthy. But after that dinner that wasn't, something in me began to watch instead of just react. One Saturday, Noah sat at my small table, kicking his heels against the chair as he ate the grilled cheese I made him. Mom packed me snacks, he said through a mouthful. But your grilled cheese is better. I smiled. Don't tell her that. She might ban you from coming over. He laughed, not understanding the weight in my voice. Later, when he turned on the TV, I went into the kitchen to rinse the dishes. That's when I saw Michael's social media page open on his phone, lying on the counter where he'd left it earlier. I recognized the blue and white layout, the little red circle of notifications. I should have left it alone. I know that. But loneliness makes you hungry for things you promised yourself you didn't need. So I glanced. Just one glance. At the top of the screen was a new photo. A long dining table covered with a fall-pattern tablecloth. A turkey in the middle. Bowls and plates and glasses. Every chair filled. Michael at one end, Laura next to him. Noah sandwiched between his parents, holding a dinner roll up to his mouth like a trophy. The caption read, "Our little family Thanksgiving this year. Keeping it simple, just us." My name wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. Why would it be? But that phrase, just us, sat on my tongue like something sour. I washed Noah's plate in silence, listening to the cartoon voices in the living room. Behind them, the clock ticked, the fridge hummed, the world went on turning. No one knew that a photograph on a phone had just carved a new crack in an old heart. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. That night, after Noah left and the apartment was quiet again, I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of tea and my old notebook. The one with recipes in the front and telephone numbers in the back, and a few pages of thoughts I wrote years ago and forgot about. I opened to a fresh page. My handwriting had grown shakier over the years, but the words came out clear. It felt like I was useful, but not wanted. I stared at the sentence for a long time. Then I wrote another line underneath. You cannot keep offering yourself to people who only see you as a convenience. The words frightened me a little. They sounded almost rebellious, sitting there on the page. The next week, I went to the bank. I wore my good coat, the one with the big buttons, and carried my old leather purse that still smelled faintly of the perfume I used in my 40s. The bank teller smiled in that professional, distant way they do, and I asked to speak to someone about my accounts. I sat at a desk with a young woman who could have been my granddaughter if life had gone differently. She clicked through my records, explaining things in simple terms when I asked, not rushing me, not sighing. We talked about my savings, my small pension, what would happen if I needed care one day. She showed me numbers on a piece of paper, circling some, drawing arrows between others. Ultimately, she said, tapping her pen on the page, it's about what you want, Miss Harper. What do you want your later years to look like? What do you want? The question stayed with me long after I left. I realized no one had asked me that in a very long time. On my way home, I stopped at the community center. I had passed by the bulletin board near their entrance for years, always telling myself I should look more closely sometime. This time, I did. Flyers overlapped each other in bright layers. Senior yoga. Grief support. Bible study. A quilting circle on Thursday afternoons. My eyes caught on a line printed in bold on one of the flyers. No one has to sit alone. I touched the edge of the paper with my fingertips. I didn't take a picture of it. I just stood there for a moment, letting the words sink in. Back at home, I opened my notebook again. On another page, I wrote, in capital letters, underlined twice. You are allowed to choose. I didn't know exactly what I was choosing yet. But writing it felt like opening a window in a stuffy room. Days turned into weeks. I started to make small changes, the kind that no one outside would notice. I stopped waiting for my phone to light up. When it did, I answered, but I no longer kept the ringer at full volume like a life support machine. I went to the quilting circle. The first time, I felt out of place with my crooked stitches and my nervous smile. But the women there were kind. Some were younger, some older. We sat around a long table, scraps of fabric between us like fallen leaves. We talked about recipes, aching knees, grandchildren, the price of eggs. No one asked me to host. No one expected me to fix anything. I was just another pair of hands. It gets easier, one woman said quietly when I admitted I found the evenings alone hard. Not because you stop missing them. Because you start showing up for yourself. Later that night, at my kitchen table, I wrote in the notebook. You are allowed to need yourself too. Meanwhile, the invitations from Michael kept coming, but they all sounded the same. Mom, could you watch Noah? Mom, can you come over and help with the laundry? Laura's exhausted. Mom, can you make that chicken thing on Saturday? We'll swing by if we have time. If we have time. One Friday afternoon, my phone rang just as I was putting on my coat to go to quilting circle. Hey, Mom, Michael said. We're thinking of doing a big Sunday dinner at your place next week. It's just easier. You know how small our kitchen is. You could make your mashed potatoes, the roast, maybe that pie Noah likes. We'll bring some drinks. For a moment, I saw it in my mind, me carrying heavy grocery bags, standing for hours by the stove, making their favorites, hoping they'd be in a good mood, hoping no one would say something sharp enough to cut through the smell of butter and herbs. I looked at the note I had stuck to my fridge with a magnet, written in my own hand. I will not beg for a seat at the table anymore. I took a breath. Michael, I said, I won't be cooking a big dinner next Sunday. There was a pause on the line, as if the call had dropped. What? Why not? I have plans, I said. My voice surprised me. It sounded steady. And even if I didn't, I'm not going to do big dinners like that anymore. It's too much for me. And it doesn't feel good. Mom, come on, he said. It's just one dinner. It's not that big a deal. We were trying to include you. I thought of the photo caption, just us. I thought of my full table and their full bellies. In another time, I would have swallowed those memories down and said yes. It is a big deal, I answered softly. To me. I'm tired of cooking feasts that no one eats. If you want to see me, you're welcome to come have soup. Or we can go out somewhere simple. But I am done hosting these big performances. He exhaled sharply. Performances? Mom, nobody asked you to. I know, I said. That's the point. No one asked. I kept offering. And it started to feel like the only way I mattered. There was another long silence. On his end, I heard the faint sounds of a TV, Noah laughing at something in another room. Are you mad at us? Michael asked at last. I'm learning not to be mad at myself, I said. For acting like I had to earn my place at my own family's table. I don't understand, he muttered. But fine. We'll figure something out. I hope you do, I said. Really, I do. I love you. But I'm not going to keep trying the same way anymore. After we hung up, my hands trembled a little. I made myself a cup of tea and sat with the feeling. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge. It was something quieter, deeper. Like slipping my tired feet out of shoes that never fit in the first place. A week later, on a Sunday afternoon, I sat in the community center with a paper cup of coffee in my hands, listening to other women talk about their families. Some stories were worse than mine. Some were better. All of them were real. When I came home that evening, the apartment felt different. Not bigger. Not fuller. Just mine. I took out my notebook and wrote one more sentence. I was done living like a person cropped out of other people's pictures. I underlined it once, firmly. Change did not happen in a straight line. There were days I felt brave and clear. There were evenings when the quiet pressed against my ribs so hard I almost called Michael just to hear someone say my name. But slowly, the balance shifted. I started saying no when the only time they called was for favors. Not every time. I still babysat Noah. I still loved hearing his stories about school projects and friends. But I stopped dropping everything at a moment's notice. I stopped apologizing when I said, I can't today. One afternoon, several months after that uneaten dinner, the phone rang while I was knitting on the sofa. It was an unknown number. Grandma? It's me. Noah. I smiled automatically. Of course it's you. I'd know that voice anywhere. Why are you calling from a different number? It's Mom's phone, he said. I had to borrow it. I needed to ask, can you help me with a project? A project? For school, he explained. We're making family trees. Mom said I could just write grandparents and stuff, but I wanted to put your actual name. How do you spell it again? The full one? I told him, slowly, letter by letter. I heard the scratch of his pencil on paper. Okay, he said. And can I put that you like cooking and sewing? You can put whatever you think is true, I answered, my throat tight. He hesitated. I think I'm going to write that you make the best mashed potatoes. Even if we don't always eat them. We both laughed at that. It was a small sound, a little crooked around the edges, but it was ours. Grandma, he added after a moment. Are you mad when we don't come over sometimes? I looked at the notebook open on my coffee table, at the lines I had written to myself. At the plant on the windowsill whose leaves had grown thicker and greener since I started watering it regularly, instead of just when I remembered. I was, for a while, I admitted. But I'm trying to do something different. I'm trying to make sure my whole life isn't just waiting for you to show up. Oh, he said, in that honest way only children have. I want you to be in it, though. My life, I mean. I am, I said gently. Just not always in the way I thought I had to be. A few weeks after that, Michael called with a different tone in his voice. Mom, he said, Noah's been asking to come over just to hang out. Not a big dinner, nothing like that. Could we, maybe do a simple sundae? Soup or something? We'll bring dessert. Soup, not a feast. Not a performance. Just a meal. Yes, I said. Soup sounds nice. That Sunday, I made a pot of vegetable soup and bought a pie from the store. I didn't iron the fancy napkins. I didn't clean every corner of the apartment until my back hurt. I laid out 3 bowls and let that be enough. They came. They were on time. They were not stuffed with fast food. Michael complimented the soup twice. Laura helped clear the dishes without being asked. Noah showed me his family tree, my name written in careful, uneven letters. He had drawn a little pot next to my name, with steam coming out of it. It wasn't a grand apology. No one gave a speech. No one said, "We were wrong and you were right." But when they left, Michael hugged me a little longer than usual. "I'm glad we did this," he said. "We've been thinking about things." "So have I replied. After the door closed and their footsteps faded, I went back to the kitchen. 3 bowls sat in the sink, streaked with soup. The pie plate was almost empty. It looked like a real meal had happened there. Not a test. Not a plea. Just food shared between people who, however imperfectly, loved one another. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat at the small table where I had once waited in front of untouched plates. The apartment was quiet again, but the quiet felt warmer now, like a blanket instead of a punishment. I opened my notebook to a fresh page and wrote. I made their favorite dinner once, and they refused it. I thought that meant I wasn't worth staying for. Now I know my worth has nothing to do with empty plates or full ones. Outside, the evening light faded, and the street lamp clicked on. My plant by the window caught the last bit of sunset, its leaves glowing briefly before the room settled into soft lamplight. I took a sip of tea and smiled to myself. I still cook for my family sometimes. I still love them, fiercely. But I no longer set the table with my dignity on the plate, waiting to see if they will accept it or push it away. I stopped trying to earn a place in their lives through casserole dishes and pies. I started giving that effort back to myself. And strangely enough, once I stopped chasing their attention, there was more room for real connection to grow. If this story touched your heart, you can like this video, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you've ever felt treated like a burden, my next story may speak to you even more. If you'd like more stories like this, you're always welcome to subscribe to this channel, Lydia's True Stories.